Requesting connection. Established. Encrypted. We're live. The show you've been asking for. Advice, technology, and community. Linux first, all others second. This is Ask Noah.
Live from Multispeed Technologies, the Ask Noah Show starts right now. This is the show where we came to do all the things on Linux they said couldn't be done and take your questions on how to do the same. The phone lines are open this hour to be a part of the program. It's a free call, 1-855-450-NOAH. It's 1-855-450-6624, or send an email to live@asknoahshow.com. My name is Noah Chalaya. I am your host. Delighted to be here with you this hour as another episode of the Ask Noah Show kicks off. James starts us off this hour in Pennsylvania. Hey, James, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hi, Noah. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir. Thanks for calling in. How can we help?
I recently installed Kubuntu on an older laptop that I have here, and for some reason I'm unable to open either audio or video files that are on a remote Samba share. I have them on a Synology NAS, and just from some research I've done here in my own experience, it sounds like it might be related to Dolphin. So I had installed Nautilus and did that, just as a test, and I was able to open those files. But I had noticed this before when I installed Kubuntu in a virtual machine that it did the same thing. And I knew you've become a big KDE Plasma fan, so I just thought, well, it's worth a shot. See if anybody has experienced this. I could always use an alternate file manager, but I really do like Dolphin.
Sure. So I would just, because like you say, I have Kubuntu on a bunch of boxes here. I've got it in the laptop in front of me here, and I'm just looking. Is this is it a Samba share?
It is. What I'm using it's on a Synology. It is a Samba share.
Okay. The reason I ask, or the reason I guess I was a bit confused, is because I have Dolphin on here, and just mounted a Samba share. It mounted right up for me. So I'm not sure what exactly is going on. Now, when you're actually going through the connection, are you going over on the left-hand side of Dolphin and clicking on Network and then browsing for that share, or are you clicking on Add Network Folder and then manually specifying the details?
I've gone both. So I have the Synology mapped over there, or if I just just manually enter the location. It seems like I think the Samba share is fine. Like I can open every other kind of file, whether it's a document, a picture. It's just audio and video files that if I try and open, and I've tried multiple players. I've tried SM Player, VLC. I think there's a few others I've tried as well. It's just those specific audio and video files that it doesn't want to open.
I see. I'm sorry, James. I can't think of a reason of why that wouldn't work. I was just looking through here on the Samba share that's in front of my face, and I've got WAV files. They open up. I've got MP4s. Those seem to open up. The only I really can't think of a specific reason of why that would be happening. Have you? And I'm assuming you've tried either from a Windows machine or an Ubuntu proper machine, but some other machine you've tried to open this up and take a look.
Yeah, I've tried that under a Linux Mint laptop I have here, and it opens fine there.
Okay, so it's not a problem with the file. We can note that it's not a problem with the file server. We can note it's not a problem with a permissions issue, anything like that, because it's working on another machine. So it probably is specific to that Kubuntu machine. And you said that you've installed this in a VM and you've replicated the exact scenario and gotten the same results?
Yeah, and I had done this. Well, that's not recent, but that was in. It was probably even a previous version. This is 1804, and that was probably a previous version of Kubuntu, and I had noticed it then as well that it did the same thing for me.
Interesting. Well, I'm sorry I couldn't be more helpful to you, James. I appreciate you calling in. But yeah, it's one of those things where I have not seen that, and right here I've got 3 Kubuntu machines in front of me, and I'm not really able to reproduce that issue at all. And I know that's a terrible answer, right? I know that's kind of cheating. Gentleman that I'm actually, we're going to bring him on here in just a second. Steve Ovens from RedHat. He says you might try copying the entire file over to the local computer, and I'm sure that would work. Of course, the problem is it's nice to be able to open those files remotely. Again, join the program, 1-855-450-NO. It's 855-450-6624. You can send an email to live@asknoahshow.com. We'd appreciate you joining the show, make your voice heard, become a part of the program. DNS. This is a system, a protocol, a way of turning numbers into, or letters into numbers that we've had for a very long time. We've used it for a long time, and it's been very helpful. And Firefox is leading this movement to try to make DNS more secure. So what Firefox is doing is they are going to start encrypting DNS entries. We have an article here. It says, domain name service is one of the oldest parts of the internet architecture and remains largely untouched by efforts to make the web safer and more private. On the Firefox network, the security teams, we are working to change by encrypting DNS queries and testing that service that keeps DNS providers from collecting and sharing your browsing history. For more than 30 years, DNS has served as a key mechanism for accessing sites and services on the internet. Browsers, including Firefox, use DNS to access a distributed database that turns URLs into TCP IP addresses. Firefox cannot do much without the DNS service. DNS hails from the days of a kinder, more gentle internet, where it was normal to make this kind of query with unencrypted protocols, and to send them to nearby servers who claim to be able to answer it. This approach is no longer fit for the modern internet because there is no encryption. Other devices along the way might collect or even block or change this data too. DNS lookups are sent to servers that can spy on your website browsing history without either entering the information or publishing a policy about where they do that information. While sophisticated users can turn to cloud-based open resolvers that offer better privacy controls than what is available by default, most internet service providers rely on these same unencrypted protocols, so ISPs can often intercept data in any way. One of the first efforts to upgrade the privacy of DNS is to implement DNS over HTTPS. Now, this is being called the DOH protocol. This encrypts the DNS request and its responses. DOH support has been added to Firefox 62 to improve the way that Firefox interacts with DNS. DOH uses encrypted networking to obtain DNS information from a server that is configured from within Firefox. This means that the DNS requests are sent to the DOH cloud and are encrypted, while the old-style DNS requests are not protected. DOH standardization is currently a work in progress, and we hope to have many DNS servers communicating with it very soon. Now, they also talk about how they are partnering with Cloudflare and how some of these experiments have worked out very, very well. Now, I was a little bit skeptical of Cloudflare originally when they came out and said they were going to start getting into the DNS game and that they were going to try to be more responsive than Google and all of these things. It was a concern for me. I'll be honest with you, it really was. But as time has gone on, I have come to begin to trust Cloudflare, and I really trust the Mozilla organization. I really like the organization. I like Firefox, the product, very much like Thunderbird. And I think these guys really understand open source. I think they really understand what it means to be a good community member. And so if Firefox is willing to put their weight behind Cloudflare and Cloudflare's DNS system, I'm willing to do that as well. Now, I don't know. We set DNS up all the time. And we set up all sorts of different services and servers for different people. And so it's not that I'm unfamiliar with DNS. In fact, I was just working on troubleshooting some DNS stuff today. However, I am not the expert that some of the Ask Noah Show listeners are. And we, of course, we have a lot of listeners from RedHat, the organization. One of them is Steve Ovens. So he's going to join us here in just a couple of minutes, and we're going to chat a little bit about this. If you want to add your voice to the conversation, 1-855-450-NOAH. It's 855-450-6624. You can email us live at asknoahshow.com. I had to run to the phones here real quick, take a couple calls. Kevin calls from Grand Forks. Hey, Kevin, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hey, Noah, good to talk with you again.
Same.
I had a question about an rsync style backup solution for an Android phone. The deal is my wife and I have a toddler child, and as you can imagine, we take a lot of pictures of him with our mobile phones. And so what I want to do is I want to auto-upload all of our pictures onto a central server somewhere. But I want to, so that when we upload the photos, my wife and I can both see the photos, so we have access to them. But also, when we're taking the pictures of the kid, we use the burst mode.
Sure.
So in a series of 25 photos, we may only keep 20 of them, or keep 5 of them out of 25. So when we go to delete a picture, I also wanted to delete on the server so that we're not, compiling all these pictures that we don't need.
Okay. Well, I'll give you. I'll walk through this a little bit. So, first of all, there's a couple of ways to get that job done. Although it's not using rsync per se. So the way to get that job done would be to use like a C-file instance. And so the advantage of C-file is you can install the C-file client on Android. You can run C-file on your own hosted server somewhere. And C-file you point it to the picture directory, and it will just simply sync those two directories. And so you can add pictures, like let's say you had your phone, your wife's phone, and your laptop. All three of those devices could inject or could put pictures into that system, and then those pictures would sync around to the other systems. And if you ever deleted one from one system, it would delete them from all the systems. So that's one way to accomplish that thing. The second way to accomplish that thing would be a program called AndFTP. Now, AndFTP doesn't meet all of your requirements because it will connect over SSH, and so you'd be able to use SCP, not necessarily rsync, but SCP, to move files to a server. Of course, the problem with that is you're not truly syncing the directories, you're just moving from one directory to another. So you're thinking about, well, if I delete one picture, I want it to, delete across all of the systems. Obviously, it wouldn't do that. The only software that I'm aware of on Android, and again, I'm more of a Linux guy than an Android guy. I use Android. I like Android better than iOS, but I don't know everything there is to know about it. The only application that I'm aware of is a program called SSH Helper, or SSH Helper, really. I think there's just one H. The issue that I have with it is it requires a rooted Android device. And not that I'm against rooting Android devices. I think you should have administrative control over any device that you own. However, it does pose a significant problem, and it is getting more and more difficult to root some of these devices. So for those reasons, I'm not sure, will that help you at all, or is that not really what you're looking for?
I had looked at SyncThing and C-File. I did set up a Nextcloud instance, and I used the auto-upload functionality of that.
Okay.
And I liked that because we could go to our Nextcloud app on the phone, and we could see a thumbnail of the photo that we were looking at.
Sure.
But I can't delete a photo on Nextcloud if I delete it on the phone. It
Right.
doesn't have that sort of two-way sync. So
and C-File does. C-File does have that two-way sync. So I might give another look to C-File if you haven't checked that out, Kevin, and see if that works. If it doesn't work out for you, give me a call back. And actually, Kevin, I'm going to put you back on hold. I'll have Sarah pick up, and we'll take down your particulars, and we'll go ahead and give you a free. We'll go ahead and give you a free 30-day trial on a C-File instance. That way you can just install it on your phone, give it a shot, and see what you think. We'd be happy to do that for you, and we appreciate your call. Fish calls from Mississippi. Hey, is it Fish? Is that right? Welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hey, Noah. Thanks for accepting my call. How are you?
Hey, pretty good, man. Thanks for joining us. How can we help?
Well, I'm a newish user to KDE. I'm using Kubuntu 18.04, and there's this one particular annoyance with the with my headphones that I can't figure out exactly how to solve. Whenever I plug in my USB headset, I have to go into each application individually and either change my default audio device,
yes,
or and it's really annoying with like Skype, because Skype has like a notifications channel and
right.
a basic output channel, and so I don't know of any easy way to get around that. I just want to plug in my headset and then just go.
Yeah, so I actually have struggled with this as well, and my situation may be slightly different. Essentially, with the USB-C dock, it shows up as a separate audio interface, and so if I plug my computer into the dock, I have to go in there and click on it. I'll be honest with you, Fish. I don't have a good answer for you. The best thing that I've been able to do is close all of the applications that you're using, then click on the little volume application on the right-hand side on the hamburger menu of the device that you want to use. Click on that and then choose default. And any application, in my experience anyway, any application that you open after that will use that default audio interface unless you go and click on the settings cog, go into the audio volume, click on the applications tab, and then choose a separate audio interface for that particular application. So that's kind of how that's kind of what I've been doing is if I go into a dock, the first thing I'll do is I'll just set the default audio interface. And it seems to remember from time to time, like if I disconnect from the dock, if I go back, the thing that the KDE doesn't pick up very well, and Ubuntu proper with Unity did pick this up. If I plug it from one USB-C dock to another, it allows you to swap or whatever. So that's kind of I know it's not a great answer, but that's what I'm doing to solve that exact problem. And I do also share your frustration for what it's worth.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to know that I'm not the only person that's having this issue.
No, not at all. And I thank you very much for the call. Again, you too can ask your question or join the conversation. 1-855-450-NO-ITS, 855-450-6624. I want to go and talk to a friend of mine. This is a guy who I have developed a personal relationship with. He's a great friend, Mr. Steve Ovens from RedHat. We've hung out a lot at Southeast Linux Fest, and think we're going to be meeting up for another I don't know, another project, I guess we'll just call it. And so that's going to be coming up. And Steve, I understand that you have been digging in just a little bit as of today on this announcement that Firefox 62 is going to start using SSL for DNS queries. How's it going, Steve?
It's going pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being here. So, I guess I'll just ask you, what do you think about this? Is this a good idea, bad idea, going to cause problems, going to solve some?
Yeah, so like you, I was a little skeptical of Cloudflare, so I started digging into their architecture, which they actually have published online, and I have a little more comfort with the idea. I was wrestling with, how do I tell people about this? Because the way that I end up telling people kind of frames their opinion of the situation, and I want to be as neutral as I can. So I'm going to try and explain both sides of the story. So the reason why I pinged you is because I have friends at RedHat, and we were discussing this. And one of the things that came out was that if Firefox is doing DNS over HTTPS, that means that they're overriding your local DNS settings. For most home users, this is probably not going to be that big of a deal. If you're using a service like Unblock Us or something, you're going to have problems because it's going to ignore those DNS settings. Where it becomes an issue from an enterprise perspective is if you are trying to access a local resource and you type it into your browser, Firefox sends that DNS query out to Cloudflare. And we have customers at RedHat that are very concerned about DNS leakage, because that's exactly what it is. These local resources should never be leaked or even attempted to be traversed on the internet. And so leaking that DNS is a bad thing. When I was looking into it, I started to pull apart some of the Bugzilla that Mozilla had set up, and I found that right now they're blacklisting certain domains, like the .local will never go out and search Cloudflare and stuff like that. And so that gave me a little bit of hope, because they're doing this via a flat file as far as I could figure out, which means that if you are the paranoid type, you can probably just recompile Firefox with your blacklisted domains that you don't want to go out. So, I mean, that's kind of positive. I'm not sure, do you want to know a little bit about how Cloudflare is going to be handling these requests?
I don't. No, I don't. I essentially, when I read that first article, I guess I kind of stopped at, hey, you know what? We're Firefox, we're Mozilla, and we trust these guys. These are the guys we chose to go with, and so that's the direction we're going to go. And I guess I kind of trust their judgment on that.
So I can kind of fill you in if you're interested. I won't go too deep, but
Okay.
if you're interested, I can give you like a high level.
Please.
So we're all aware of how DNS generally works, right? You type in google.com and it goes and it searches for the corresponding IP. On a macro level, that's kind of how it works, right? You type in an address, you get an IP back, and then a connection is made. But what happens in DNS is it's actually split off into each different type of server. So .com is the TLD, which is the top level domain. So what happens is when you make that call to google.com, the first thing it does is try to figure out who has the authoritative records for anything in the .com domain. And then it goes to talk to that guy and says, okay, where does Google live? And then it forwards that top level domain server, then does a lookup and says, okay, I think I know a person, go talk to this person, right? So there's a bunch of hopping that happens. You can think of it every time that you have a period in a URL, so like live.asknoah.com. So
Sure.
there's three parts. You've
Yep.
got the TLD, which is the .com, then you've got the domain, which is, you know, Noah Show, and then you've got the subdomain. And each time that you have a period in there, there's a different server that is being requested in order to figure out where things live. How this relates to Cloudflare is that they're actually taking this and bisecting it and trying to figure out, they're making multiple calls on your behalf. So they look at your DNS request and specifically only talk to the TLD for .com, and they get that little piece of information back, and then they go to a different server and get a different piece of information.
Sure.
And then they assemble it all and send it back to your browser. So they're taking some very, what we would consider extraordinary steps to kind of protect your privacy in that regard, and that made me feel a little bit better. They're also doing things like when you make a DNS request, part of the request is, you know, this is my browser's address because you need the information come back to you. Cloudflare is doing that on your behalf, kind of like a proxy. So they're putting forward their own DNS and their own IP when they're making these requests, so that the domain servers that are responding see Cloudflare is asking for this, not Noah is asking for this page. And that also kind of, that is an extra safeguard, because there's a certain amount of stuff that Google, for example, kind of hoovers up. They're very interested to know what DNS calls you're making and who's making them to kind of establish a pattern.
Right.
Which, by the way, Chrome does by default. Your DNS queries by default in Chrome are being stored and logged by Google.
Interesting.
There are settings to go turn that off, but so Cloudflare has actually put in a bunch of protections. And then to top it all off, Mozilla does allow you to choose whichever provider that you choose to handle the DNS over HTTPS.
That's fascinating. And Steve, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the program and explain some of this and kind of dig into it. You know, I've always said I think that one of the biggest criticisms I have for Red Hat is that they don't do a good enough job about talking about the amazing things that they are doing. And I think to a certain degree that applies to Mozilla too. I think Mozilla behind the scenes does some really fantastic things for Linux, for the open source community, for the internet at large, and I don't think they get enough credit for it, and I don't think they do a good enough job about talking about it. Up until I was talking to you, this wasn't even on my radar. This hasn't come up. It's not being talked about widely online. I went to a couple of the Linux discussion groups I'm in. Hey, anybody heard about this? Anybody talking about it? Most of the people weren't even aware of it. Those that were aware of it, it did not have deep details. I had to dig and dig and dig just to find an article that I thought kind of went over at a very high level some of these technical details. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk about some of this stuff. Anything else you want to add?
Not particularly on this issue, although I did want to clarify, you had the caller about the KDE. What I was trying to explain was that I've seen Dolphin misbehave at some clients' house sites where it's actually trying in the background to transfer the entire thing under the hood into a temporary directory. That's what I was trying to explain. So sometimes on the larger files, you click on it, instead of trying to stream it, Dolphin is misbehaving and trying to do an SCP or something to your local directory. And we've seen that manifest as the end user thinks that it's not doing anything.
Sure, that makes perfect sense. Well, thanks again, Steve. I really appreciate having you. I know that you and I have a couple of things in the pipe, as it were, and so I look forward to having you back on the program real soon.
Thanks, Noah. Appreciate the show.
Yeah, I really appreciate having you. 1-855-450-NOAH. It's 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. Make your voice heard. Become a part of the program. So this week, Dropbox announced that they are ending support for Dropbox syncing to drives with, and I quote, certain uncommon file systems, end quote. The supported file systems going forward will be NTFS for Windows, HFS Plus, or APFS for Mac, and Ext4 for Linux. And so they said that they have updated their desktop requirements accordingly. Now, I want to start out, before I go any further, I just want to say, I don't have any problem with Ext4. I love Ext4. Ext4 is a great file system. I have plenty of machines running on ext4. For the longest time, I had my laptop running on ext4. This laptop, let's look. This laptop very well might be Ext4. It just might be encrypted Ext4. Yes, it is. What? Yes, it is. It is Ext4. So I'm running Ext4 on my laptop. I love ext4. Now, this is the encrypted version of Ext4, but love Ext4. That said, it is an old file system, and there are better file systems out there. And one of the great things about the open source community, about the open source world, is that we have people that all they do is focus on file systems, and they do a really great job. And I want to dig into that a little bit more. I see some calls stacking up here, so we're gonna continue that discussion as we go on. Again, 1-855-450-NOAH, 855-450-6624. Matthew, Austria, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hi, Noah. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you, sir?
Can you hear me, Noah?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I actually have a slight problem. I have a laptop running Linux on it, but beware, it's not KDE or something. It's actually Solus, and I wanted to clone my hard drive to actually put a new hard drive into a new laptop. I already bought this, I think, SanDisk SDD clone kit. Unfortunately, the instructions there are only for Windows. Is there a solution to actually clone my Solus hard drive and put it into, or for that matter, clone my hard drive, if it's not possible in Solus, to, for example, put it on Mint, put it on a Mint spin or something, and then put it in my new laptop with all the exact data and apps that I have now?
Sure. So I will tell you, and maybe I'm missing something here, but so if I start going down a solution, you're like, yeah, that won't work because of this, let me know. But based on what you've told me so far, the way to do what you're trying to do is just to clone the partition using something like Clonezilla. And Clonezilla has the ability to clone, you can do the entire drive, soup to nuts, or you can do specific parts of the drive. So you can choose just to clone the Linux partition, just the Windows partition. I would do, obviously, the Linux partition and the bootloader if that Windows partition is still going to exist on there.
No, it's a plain laptop with just Linux on it. So I'm actually just want to clone the Linux hard drive, but unfortunately the instructions for this SDD kit are only for Windows.
I'm sorry. I apologize. You probably said this, and I wasn't paying enough attention. The SDB kit. What is that?
It's a SanDisk SDD clone kit. That's what it's called, I think.
I see. So you purchased a new SSD. It came with a kit for cloning your existing drive. You said, that's a really great idea. I want to do that, but it only runs on Windows.
Yes.
Okay, I got you now. Okay, great. Awesome. So this is a very easy problem to solve. The answer to your question, same answer really, is a program. We have, the answer, Matthew, is that we in the open source Linux community already have our own SDD cloning kit, and it is called Clonezilla, and it is available free of charge. And I'm going to have a link for you in the show notes, but it's clonezilla.org. And essentially what Clonezilla does is it will take an image of your hard drive and allow you to place that image on another machine or a new SSD. And so at our workstations at Altispeed, for example, we have a standard deployment image that we've made with Clonezilla. And what we do is when we buy a new SSD, we plug the SSD in and we just clone the image onto there. And we store that image on a file server and copy it right over. And it works every time flawlessly. And it will keep all of your data there. It will keep all of your settings. It will keep your partition layout and sizes and all of that. Of course, you can edit those afterwards if you are upgrading a drive to a larger drive or something like that. But all of your encryption keys will be there. Everything will be exactly how you left it. It's kind of like making your own system restore disk back in the system restore disk days, except this has all of your software and it works on Linux.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. And great show, by the way.
Oh, pleasure to meet you. And thanks for calling in. Again, podcast.asknoahshow.com/81 will have a direct link for the Clonezilla download page in there for you, so you don't have to work for it. But it's clonezilla.org is what it is. Steve is calling from North Carolina. Hey, Steve, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Well, thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir. Thanks for joining us.
I'm probably one of your perfect candidates for switching to Linux, but my computer is about at the end of life, and I'm looking to try Linux on it and get used to the programs, and we'll probably put it on a external drive. But the computer I've got is a 13-inch MacBook Pro from 2009.
Okay.
Is that too old?
No, not at all, sir. In fact, no, not at all. In fact, sir, what you'll find is that the MacBooks from 2009 actually work much better than the computers that you would buy today. If you were to go out and buy a brand new MacBook Pro today, it would be almost impossible, if not impossible, to get Linux running on that machine as it sits currently. When you start getting a little older than 2012, 2011, certainly back in the 2010, 2009 days. So that's like, I'm going to say Core 2 Duo-ish, like 4 gigs.
Exactly.
Yeah, that thing will run Linux right out of the box. You plug a flash drive in. The only thing you're going to have to do to it is it uses a Broadcom wireless chipset, and so you'll have to plug the Ethernet cable in the first time you boot it up. And inside of the additional drivers tab in Ubuntu, there is a little checkbox that says "Allow me to use third-party additions," and you click on that, and it will enable the Broadcom chipset, and then your wireless will work. And that's the only thing you have to do. Everything else will work right out of the box for you.
Oh, great. That'll give me a little bit of time to get used to all the Linux.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, wonderful.
Yes, sir.
That answered my question. Thanks so much.
Perfect. Thanks for calling. And if you have any trouble, Stevie, give me a call back, and we'll be happy to help you. And especially if you're in North Carolina, it seems like every time I'm down there, I pick up more and more friends down there. They're all Linux guys. And so if necessary, I can get you hands-on help if you need it. So, and we'd be happy to do that. 1-855-450-NOAH, 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. Yeah, speaking of North Carolina, I guess we'll just do this now. We aired what I think is one of the best episodes we've ever aired on the Ask Noah Show. And it is a gut-wrenching, long, windy, uncomfortable episode to listen to. Jeremy Sands from Southeast Linux Fest joined us and told us the fantastic, if not horrific, story of the sacrifices that he has made on a personal level to get desktop Linux promoted at a conference that puts desktop Linux first. It puts Linux users first. And I'll tell you a little story. We didn't go back into this in the episode, but I'll just tell you a personal story. The very first communication I ever had with Jeremy Sands was he sent an email out to people that were speaking at Southeast Linux Fest, and the email said something to the effect of, and if you are bringing freedom-hating hardware, you are completely on your own, as that's not the kind of stuff that we're here to support. It's certainly not the kind of stuff that we're here to focus on. And so if everything looks terrible or doesn't work or we don't have the right adapter, basically screw off. If you want our help and if you want your presentation to go smoothly, then purchase a ThinkPad and install Linux on it, and we will support you in every way possible. Now, the past couple of years, we have provided ThinkPads with presentations. I think this year we're actually going to mandate that you present on a ThinkPad with Linux. And we'll provide it for you. And what that's going to do, or what that has done in the past, what it will do in the future, is if you have a presentation that you designed on PowerPoint or Prezi or whatever, it's probably going to look pretty terrible when you try to import it. So it will reward those. The people that do it on Linux at a Linux conference are going to have a better time. Now, it probably, when I say mandate, I don't mean like, you ban from bringing your Mac through the front door or anything like that. I just mean officially supported. If you're completely on your own, if you decide you want to try and use your Mac. And by the way, our projectors don't support Apple has a stupid HD protection thing where, because we split the signal that goes into the stream and goes out over the projector, so a lot of people with Macs, their HD copy protection thing was kicking in, they just didn't have slides. So just keep that in mind, that if you're going to present on a Mac, your slideshow will probably be a disaster. Everyone's going to laugh at you and you're going to look like an idiot. That was the first experience I had with Jeremy. And since then, I have been nothing but impressed with his dedication to Linux and his devotion to the open source community and his welcomingness of basically everything I've ever tried to do. Supportive of LAS, supportive of Ask Noah, supportive of Altispeed, supportive of some of the new ventures that I'm working on. And he's always been in my corner, and I've always really appreciated him for his character, his integrity, and his passion for Linux. And a couple of months ago, he brought to my attention a long, stirring problem that had been occurring in the Linux community. And so we brought him on the program, and we aired the entire thing, soup to nuts, start to be end. And it was a fantastic episode. So I encourage you to check that out. Now, if you're not into politics and you don't care about that kind of stuff, then maybe the episode isn't for you. So I thought I would just bring a couple of highlights onto this episode. So in case you wanted to hear like the best parts of it, or what I think anyway are the best parts of it, without having to actually sit through like 2 hours of content, you can do that. So the first thing is I want to play a clip where Jeremy talks about his personal commitment to making self happen.
I'll put it to you this way. The cost of the bar tab alone exceeded gross receipts. More or less bankruptcy for the event. I, at the time, happened to be saving up to buy a house, so the down payment on my house became what bailed self out.
So he took literally the money that he was going to spend on his own house down payment and put it towards the conference to make sure the conference would happen. That's the kind of guy that Jeremy is. And then later on, we started digging into some of the technical challenges that Self had struggled through. And one of the issues that they had were they were in a hotel, and the hotel didn't have fast internet, and so they were trying to work out a way that they could get high-speed internet. And Jeremy tells us this funny story about how he had signed up for Sprint WiMAX right before they decided to cancel Sprint WiMAX. And they didn't tell him that at the time that he signed up, so he's in this 4-year agreement and doesn't actually have WiMAX service, finds himself at a hotel where the hotel doesn't have internet, but he has this WiMAX service that nobody else is on.
So, all right, Sprint, you say that plan's unlimited? Let's find out. I moved my Photon 4G to the window of our command center so that it could get the best possible line of sight. And then our Slackware network team tapped into that tether, and that became the conference network.
So you called your network team, you're like, hey guys, I've got it on the cell phone, now figure out a way to get this into all of the wiring infrastructure that we have throughout the conference.
Yeah, so they already had everything wired up, they just needed the pipe to the world. So
right.
WiMAX became the pipe to the world.
And then later on, he tells us an amusing story about all of the funny things that have happened in Self. A wedding party showed up, got super drunk, tried to outdrink those that were attending Self, and found out that Linux geeks can typically outdrink any wedding party. And so, debauchery ensued, and he tells that entire story and, all of the bad things that happened. But one of the funny things is a lot of people have this idea that these tech conferences, these geek conferences are filled with, guys who have been sitting on their butt so long that they're constipated and they have no friends, they have no girlfriend, they have no social life. And that is somewhat true in some ways for some people. But it turns out there are some very attractive, very well-to-do girls that are attracted to guys like that.
I would have called you a liar to your face until I saw it myself. I have seen female executives from Bank of America show up to the Southeast Linux Fest explicitly to headhunt geek men.
So if you missed that, there are people from Bank of America that literally come to Southeast Linux Fest for the purpose of trying to get involved with these geek guys. And I told him when he said that, I said, you know what, this is going to be one of those things where you are going to double or triple the conference attendees. And finally, and I just, this is the last I'm going to cover this because this is all in the episode. And so if you heard the episode, this is a repeat, and I apologize to you. This is why I think this is the best Linux conference in the entire United States, and why it's the Linux conference that I'm throwing my personal weight behind and literally started working last month and will continue to work till June to make it the most successful conference in the United States, because I believe in it so strongly. We get people hired at Self.
We get people hired at Self, and we get them hired to use the software and the tools they love anyway. So remember the woman who had the business card stuffed down her shirt? Well, that year she was hired by a different sponsor. And despite the fact that as part of that hiring she had to move 1,000 miles further away from Self, she has been back every single year. And that is by far not the only employment success story. An actual sponsor who unfortunately I cannot name specifically due to their own corporate policy, told me that at the Southeast Linux Fest, they had more qualified applicants and more hired applicants and more retained hired applicants than they had at the Southern California Linux Expo. That was mind-boggling to me. Self is roughly 500 to 750 people. Scale will clear that in the first 2 hours of registration opening. Scale is somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 depending on the year. The fact that we outcompeted that talent pool is absolutely mind-boggling to me. I would have bet a large amount of money that would simply not be possible.
And so that's, really, we've talked about nothing else, that's really what I want to leave you with, is that if you are looking to build a successful career in the IT infrastructure, and this applies to you if you have been an IT guy for years and years and years, or if you're just starting out, Self is a conference you want to attend. Let's go to Jonathan in Texas. Hey, Jonathan, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hey, Noah. Good afternoon, sir. Great show. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. How can we help?
Yeah, I've been using Linux Mint for about a year now. And I really love the operating system. Very, very fast, stable. And I have a desktop, and I'm running Windows 7 Pro on it. And the only reason why I'm using that is I play Battlefield games online. And I just really want to ditch Windows and, just use Linux all the way. I just having a problem installing that game onto the, for example, Linux Mint or something like that.
Sure. You're trying to do it with Wine or something?
With Wine, it's not very stable. It's not really working too well. And there's a lot of things you have to do to the video card.
Yep, absolutely. Let me give you. Now this will be a little bit more free to set up, okay? But let me see if I can walk you through this. My friend Wendell Wilson from Level 1 Techs actually has a video on exactly how to do this. And basically what he does is he virtualizes an entire Windows environment on top of a Linux environment using PCI pass-through. Now, Jonathan, the advantage to PCI pass-through over traditional virtualization or over, Wine, for example, where it's just emulating that Windows application layer, is you're actually talking directly to the hardware. So, for example, in your Battlefield 1 game, if you were to pass the graphics card through, Windows is talking directly to that graphics card as if Windows was installed on the system. Now, you might be asking me, Noah, why would you go through all that trouble to virtualize Windows on top of Linux? Why wouldn't we just dual boot Windows? Well, the reason is because you'll maintain the stability and security advantages of Linux, because Linux is actually what's talking to the metal underneath. Then on top of that, then you'll actually gain the compatibility to be able to run literally any game that runs on Windows. And he'll show my friend Wendell Wilson can explain this a lot better than I can, and I'll have a link for you in the show notes. We'll go through that, and he'll show you exactly how to set that up so that you can either dual boot into Windows or you can just run it right on top of your Linux system. How's that sound?
Sounds pretty good.
Outstanding. I'll have that link for you in the show notes. Again, 1-855-450-NOAH. It's 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. Make your voice heard, become a part of the program. Coming up next, tomorrow, actually, a good friend of mine, actually with me in the studio now, is Brad Schmidt, and he is launching a political podcast that's going to be the replacement to Unfiltered. Hey, Brad.
Hey, Noah, how you doing?
Welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Yes, kind of a cool little setup you got here.
I appreciate you taking the time to be here. So, you and I are launching a podcast as Unfiltered is winding down.
Right.
You have a passion for politics.
Yes.
You care about news issues. you have an ability to present these things, and you're starting a new show. Tell me about it.
Well, it's essentially just going to be me, telling people what they're supposed to believe about about what's happening in the world. If you're reading the latest news about what's going on with the Trump administration, or if you're reading the latest news about what's happening in Congress or some governorship in whatever state that's making national news, I'm going to tell you what you're supposed to believe about it. I'll also tell you why you're wrong about the various topics, and then you'll argue with me, and we'll have a vigorous and passionate debate, and it'll be a lot of fun. I mean, the really is. I've certainly got my opinions. I've got a huge ego, and I like to tell people what they're supposed to believe about stuff. But more than anything, I want it to be a discussion. So there's going to be a lot of that. We're going to do everything we can to give people an opportunity to engage in the show, and of course some of that's in process, because we're launching this. It was kind of a quick deal to get it up and running. So the first few episodes are not going to be live, but after that, it's like I say, I hope, my plan is no more than 4 episodes will be live and taking phone calls and all of that kind of stuff.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's very cool. So the show is going to be called The Schmidt Show.
Yep.
People can get it at podcast.theschmidtshow.com.
Yep.
You're going to be doing it the first couple of nights. You're going to release them on Wednesday night, so the same time as Unfiltered. After that, you're transitioning to, is it Monday morning?
Yeah, the plan right now is to do it Monday morning. I'm thinking, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock Monday morning, something like that, simply because I do also a terrestrial radio show, a traditional AM radio talk show.
Okay.
And so I'm live 3 to 6 Central Time.
Sure.
So, of course, I can't release it at 5:30 and do another live show at the same time.
Yeah.
So it'll have to be a different time slot.
So it's going to be live. So if people they're commuting to work, or they're getting to work and they want to figure out the news for the day, this is something that they can listen to it on their phone. They can listen to it on their computer, and it's gonna touch on topics all the way around the board and across and span the United States.
Right. And now my passion is politics, without a question.
Yeah.
But there's a lot about me that's, I'm a former pastor, so we'll get into some religion stuff, I'm sure.
Right.
I'm also a huge Formula One fan, so I might end up talking about the latest Formula One race.
Cool.
But I also just like to talk about people's lives. I'm as a former pastor, I've actually done, marriage counseling and stuff. And I've had that happen on my radio show. I've had people call in and say, hey, I've been struggling with addiction for a long time, and I don't know what to do. How can you help me? And I'm a former addict. I've been clean for 22-ish years, something like that. I can't remember the actual, but it's been over 2 decades. So I've got a lot of life experience. I'm also a truck driver and some of that kind of stuff. So I do all kinds of different things, and I've got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas, so I might be able to help people in that way. But the main push is going to be politics, just because that's your passion. Yeah, I love that.
And the thing that I really appreciate about you, and every time if whether we're out shooting guns or we're out having something to eat or just hanging out, one of the things that I always appreciate about you is you come off a little bit differently when you're on the air, because it's funny. It's funny to be confident and stuff like that. And of course, you have to like the sound of your own voice to do what you do.
Yes.
But at the same time, you are one of the most humble, honest people that I've ever met. And no, seriously now, when we sit down and we start talking about something, there'll be times where I'm having a conversation. I'm like, I know something about this. I'm going to teach Brett. And I'll start talking to you, and you'll very quietly, patiently, humbly listen to what I'm saying. And then I get done, and you start talking about it, and I realize you have a whole swath of knowledge that I had no idea that you knew. And so to be able to bring that on the air, and like you say, you have such a wide career. You've done 40 different jobs. So people can relate to you, and you're the average guy that can break down politics for the average guy. And I think that's what I find so compelling about you, and why I'm so thankful to be a part of your show and to be able to come on and kind of do this project with you.
Yeah, everything from my best friend's dad growing up had a cattle ranch, so I grew up working on the farm and doing that kind of stuff, to I've got a bachelor's degree in biblical studies with a minor in biblical languages. I can actually read and translate original, ancient Greek and Hebrew, and I can't speak it just because they're ancient languages, and modern Greek and modern Hebrew is so much different than, just like the English that we spoke 500 years ago is not the same English we speak today. So there's those but I've literally have done just about everything that you can imagine: construction work, and I've done home remodels and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And there's a lot of times I've actually forgotten about, I used to do that. Somebody will call in and say, hey, I've got this question. I'm like, oh, well, actually, I used to work at this job, and I'd forgotten, not that I'd forgotten about the job, but it was never relevant before. Sure. So yeah. So
that's fantastic. And one of the things that you and I have done outside of the show is, you're playing with Linux and computers and kind of get involved with that. And now we drug your son into all of that.
Yeah.
And so we're corrupting him.
Yep.
And so how has that been, coming here in, like the studio, you sat down and the first, and you're kind of a Mac guy,
right?
But you sit down in here and everything is running Linux,
right?
Have you found that to be usable and straightforward? Or?
Yeah, for the most part, it's So I also, one of the other things that I've done, I worked as a tech support guy. I worked for Gateway Computers for a while, and I worked for Hewlett Packard for a while back in the day, and I've supported everything from Windows 98, Windows 95. NT machines to Windows XP and into actually even supported for a medical company kidney dialysis machines that were running on its own kind of one-off operating system.
Sure.
But yeah, so for me, the thing with Linux is it's actually not that far off from being a Mac guy. Mac is based on Linux, so it's
just the thing that can do more than
the thing that I found was, as far as it relates to Linux, is the customizability.
Right.
There's so much more of that. With a Mac, you're kind of stuck with Mac, and that's and for me, I'm not what I would call a power user. So I don't need all of the cool stuff. But what I'm finding is, as I do the cool stuff, I'm like, I didn't know I needed that before. So that's one of the things that as it relates to Linux is and I years ago, I don't know, it was actually when I was pastoring, I actually had a Windows machine that I had dual booting to Windows, Linux, or Windows and Linux. And I think it was Ubuntu.
Okay.
I think it's been 10 years ago now.
Sure.
And so I played with it back then. The problem I had with it is the incompatibility, because everything in our building and everything at my home was all Windows at the time. I hadn't become a Mac guy yet. And whatever, and I didn't know anything about Linux.
Right.
So I'm trying to compile my own drivers and figure out how to make all this stuff work.
Brad, don't you worry. That's what we're here for. I am here to help. So there will be some Linux switching that will be happening here. I was looking at Brad's computer, and we're sitting here. He's like, he already opened the door. He's like, yeah, maybe this thing needs to be upgraded. I'm like, oh, buddy, let me tell you how we can upgrade that son of a gun.
I'm probably going to end up having to figure out how to dual boot a Mac to Mac and
exactly.
And
well,
Linux.
I can tell you that particular one, because that's it must be like a 2012, 2013.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
okay, that will run Linux very, very well. So we'll have no problem.
So this one
we'll just turn off the mics and we'll go install it for you. It'll be not a problem.
It is a mid 2010.
Oh yeah, perfect. So, we'll get that installed. Have running in Linux by the Friday, I think. No problem.
2.6 gigahertz Intel Core 2 Duo. Does that reveal how pathetic I am?
No, it reveals how long you're able to milk technology. And if you think that that computer is usable as a Core 2 Duo under Mac OS, I can't wait for you to see what happens by Friday when we have it running a bunch. It's going to be fantastic. Yeah, it's going to be great. Well, Brad Schmidt, theschmidtshow.com, podcast.theschmidtshow.com to subscribe to the feed. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at The Schmidt Show, on Facebook, facebook.com/Schmidt Show. And I guess we'll see you Wednesday night and followed by starting Monday mornings.
Yeah, eventually we're going to move to, hopefully no more than 4 episodes. We'll be doing Monday mornings live.
Awesome. And the first 4, they're going to come out in the unfiltered feed. Then we'll have all of those available for you at podcast.theschmidtshow.com. Brad Schmidt, thanks so much for coming on the Ask Noah Show. We'll get you back on the program real soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So you can check that out tomorrow. Actually, no, don't tell anybody. Hopefully nobody but you, the listener, hears this. But word on the street is that if you subscribed right now, the episode that's going to air tomorrow might be in the feed, but you didn't hear that here. 1-855-450-NOAH, 855-450-6624. The email live at AskNoahShow.com. Justin calls from Indiana. Hey, Justin, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hi, Noah. How are you?
Excellent, sir. How can we help?
Well, first, I just want to say I'm psyched to hear about the Schmidt, so that should be tons of fun. Did I hear correctly that you're going to be on that as well?
Yeah, so essentially here's what I'm doing. I have a passion for politics. I like it. I like news. I like talk radio. I am not as good at it as this guy is. And so what we're going to do is him and I are going to team up, and he's going to show me a couple of things on how some of these things work. And I'm going to be the button pusher kind of behind the scenes and handling all the technical stuff, which is really where my forte is. And then I'm going to let him actually break down the issues. I think he's going to do a fantastic job.
Sounds like a load of fun nonetheless. On to the question, though. Recently I've taken interest in setting up outside cameras for my house. And software aside, because that seems to be its own rat's nest, software aside, I'm wondering if you have experience with outdoor camera systems for your home, and what kind of cameras you would recommend using.
Sure.
Answering simple questions like, are night vision cameras actually worth it? Are there some cameras that stand out above others? And more importantly, if I were to get some cameras, say 5 or 6 in that range, is there a system that you would recommend that I can self-host that doesn't have to call out to the internet that would allow me to manage these systems both locally and remotely?
Okay, so the system you're looking for is Ubiquiti, and here's why. They make indoor cameras, they make dome cameras, they make outdoor cameras, they make long-range cameras, they make night vision cameras. You can self-host the system. And the system it's literally just a repository that you add on top of Debian or Ubuntu. And so you could run it in the cloud, you could run it at your house, or you can buy a pre-made box. They have it. It's called the NVR. And I'll have a link for you for the NVR in the show notes. But these cameras, they run about $100 to $150 depending on exactly what you get. And the system is infinitely expandable, so you can do 1 or 10,000. It's just a matter of how many you want to fit or scroll through on the screen. Where the only downside I've ever found to the Unify system is that it is a proprietary system, so it only works with Unify cameras, only works with the NVR, from Unify. Now there is an open standard for IP cameras. The Ubiquiti doesn't conform to them. I have tried using the open standard DVR versions, and I just don't think they work very well. So this is a commercial grade system. We've put it in plenty of businesses. Again, we've put it in as small as one single camera all the way up to hundreds of cameras. Never done 10,000, but it should just be a network limitation. So each camera has the ability to stream over RTMP, so you can take those feeds out and put them over the internet, or connect to them remotely on your phone. A lot of people do that. I have seen a couple people, they'll put a camera out if they have like a really fantastic view out of their lake house or something like that. They'll mount it on their deck so they can kind of take a look out and see what's going on. So absolutely, that's the system that I would look into if I were you.
Something that larger scale, is that going to have a decent user interface, especially something mobile?
Yeah, so the Unify system is designed for end users. In fact, that has been a problem in some ways, and I'll explain why. Essentially, what happens is there is no way to monitor the camera 24 hours, 7 days a week. So this idea behind a fat guy sitting eating cheeseburgers inside of a security room, kind of watching the cameras, quote unquote, as the colloquial football game plays, and he misses, whatever, Tom Cruise breaking in. That kind of thing, these cameras don't do, because again, they're all RTMP streams, so they're not exactly real time, and the system would just kind of hang up if you tried to monitor every camera feed all at the same time. So they're designed to either detect motion and notify you when there's motion in an area that there shouldn't be, or to be able to call up and look instantaneously at a given room or something like that. But to that end, because they are designed for end users, not for the quote-unquote security specialist, they have a fantastic mobile app, and it's literally just a web interface. You log into the web interface and click on the camera you want, or click on the series of cameras you want, and or go back and pull footage.
All right. Lastly, what's your experience with systems like ZoneMinder or Kerberos? Not the Kerberos authentication system, but the Kerberos camera monitoring software.
I have played with ZoneMinder. I like ZoneMinder. It works well enough. There is another piece of software called Blue Cherry DVR that I think has a better interface. Although after I said that the last time on the air, there was a guy that called up for me that does a lot of work around this area with ZoneMinder, and said, come look at mine. Mine is set up really nice. And to his credit, it looks amazing. The problem that I had with it was, there's a lot of work there, whereas the Blue Cherry one, is just set up to work. Now the thing is, the ZoneMinder, you'll be able to use open source cameras, open protocols, whereas the Unify one, you're not going to be able to do that. But again, having used ZoneMinder, use the Unified, go with the Unify every time. Hey guys, did you know this episode is available as a downloadable podcast? To subscribe to the feed or download the latest episode, visit podcast.asknoahshow. Let's see here. You can follow us on Twitter at Ask Noah Show. The Ask Noah Show continues next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central. A huge thanks to Vox Telesys for providing our phone system, Sarah, our call screener, Ben, our producer. This hour of the show may be over, but there's plenty more content for you 24/7 at AskNoahShow.com.